The Industrial Revolution, of course, changed everything about our lives, the way we live. But an often overlooked part of that is the natural ice harvest. I'm Darren, and this is the Industrial Revolution. Ice, of course, has been around, well, pretty much forever, but we know from archaeological evidence that at least as far back as 1000 BCE in China, they were actually producing small amounts of ice. We know in ancient Egypt and India, back to 500 BCE, they were also producing small amounts of ice. In all of these cases, they set out small, very shallow bowls on cold nights to produce very small amounts of ice. This was produced and used for very much a luxury good for the rich and powerful. By the 1700s, farmers in the northeast US had begun to harvest ice from frozen ponds. It was done using large hand saws and harvested in fairly small quantities, then stored in small ice houses to later sell during the summer, again, as a luxury good. The technology was pretty limited. Used augers to drill holes and check ice thickness, and long hand saws to actually cut the blocks. But that was about to change. In 1802, farmer and inventor Thomas More created the refrigerated ice box to keep his butter from melting on the way to market on hot summer days. Later called a refrigerator and demonstrated personally to President Thomas Jefferson, who signed the patent himself, it consisted of a large oval cedar tub with a tin box set inside to hold the butter. Between the tin box and the wooden tub, ice was used to keep the butter cold. These were then covered with a cloth and finally covered with a rabbit skin for insulation. Demand for ice began to climb. 3 years later, in 1805, Fredrick Tudor, nicknamed the Ice King, came up with the idea of shipping ice from the frozen north to the tropical islands in the Caribbean. On February 10, 1806, he set sail in a brig named the Favorite, sending his first shipment of ice from Saugus, Massachusetts to Martinique. It was a commercial failure. Although much of the ice made it through the trip, there was nowhere to store it in Martinique. With plenty of ice still unsold, he stopped in Havana, Cuba to load the hold with fresh fruit, using the unsold ice to keep it fresh, before finally returning to Massachusetts. In 1815, now that he knew that he could actually get ice to the Caribbean, Tudor built the first commercial ice depot in Havana, Cuba. It could hold up to 150 tons of ice, brought in from the north, and would not only supply the Caribbean, but also provide ice to transport tropical fruits back to the north. With demand for ice rapidly increasing, Nathaniel Wyeth partnered with Tudor to develop a special horse-drawn plow that scored, but didn't fully cut, the ice into uniform grids. You can see it in use here from this 1919 film shot at Pocono Manor in Pennsylvania. After sweeping or plowing the snow from the top of the ice, this new plow would be used to deeply score the ice. Since it didn't cut all the way through the ice, it was still safe to walk on and even walk your horses across. Blocks were standardized at 22 inches by 32 inches, 56 centimeters by 81 centimeters, and ideally 14 inches thick or 36 centimeters. You can see on the side of the plow there's guides that they used to line up with the previous cut, ensuring that the size was consistent. With the ice scored, large heavy spud bars were used to break apart big sections of ice called floats. In smaller operations, like at Pocono Manor, these floats were pulled toward shore by people using ice hooks, where they were then broken up into individual blocks using those same spud bars. In larger operations, such as this one at Coolbaugh Township, also in Pennsylvania's Pocono Mountains, these ice floats were huge, and people actually rode on the floats. Assisted by others, they maneuvered the floats towards shore using those same ice hooks. Once the larger floats got near shore, they were then broken into smaller sections, about 6 blocks or so each, and fed under a bridge called a water box, where men used spud bars to break along the final score lines, breaking them into the individual blocks. With the individual blocks floated to shore, smaller operations slid the blocks up wooden tracks, out of the water, and onto the backs of horse-drawn wagons. Check out the spikes on these horseshoes. Anyway, the horses would pull the carts up to the ice house, where the next phase began. See that horse being led back and forth? We'll get back to him. Once at the ice house, blocks had to be loaded in from the top of the building. Here at Pocono Manor, as at many other places, they had an elevator built on the outside of the building. With blocks weighing 300 to 400 pounds, 135 to 180 kilograms, you're not going to just easily carry these things up the stairs by hand. Remember that horse? Just add a few simple pulleys, and that horse is a 1 horsepower engine to lift all of that ice. Once you're in the ice house, you've got a whole new set of jobs. Cutting the blocks, of course, the main risks are falling into the water, frostbite, hypothermia. In the ice house, the main risk is crushing between and under the heavy blocks. The blocks come in at the top and slide along ramps. Where the ramps split, someone called a switcher uses an ice hook to route the blocks down the correct path to the next person, called a spacer. The spacer sets the blocks in place, about 2 inches apart from the adjacent blocks. Why the spacing? Well, if you've ever bought a bag of ice cubes, they're usually all frozen together, and you have to smash the bag to separate them. And it's the same in an ice house. If you stack the blocks right up next to each other, they'd all freeze together, and you'd wind up with one giant room-sized block of ice. A small ice house may have 2 switchers and 2 spacers, but there's a couple other jobs in the ice house too. There's a chunk boy, whose job is to get rid of any broken pieces of ice. And finally, a room boss, who keeps an eye on everything and jumps in to help out wherever needed. Once the room is full, and an ice house may actually have quite a few rooms, they cap it off with wooden planks, then cover the top with sawdust to insulate and seal off the room. In the 1860s, home ice boxes were becoming common, driving explosive demand for ice. Less than a decade later, the Transcontinental Railroad was completed, allowing fast, easy, inexpensive shipment of goods. With the 1865 invention of refrigerated railroad cars, any part of the country could now get fresh beef from Chicago, fresh produce from California, and more. To support that, ice stations were built about every 400 miles along the main rail lines. Ice demand continued to grow. Fortunately, increased demand led to equally rapid increases in technology, such as this circular saw. This is adjustable so that, just like the horse-drawn saw developed by Wythe and Taylor, the saw doesn't actually fully cut through the ice, only scoring it deeply. And just like that original saw, there's a guide on the side to ensure you're cutting straight lines and the right size block. Another big advance was powered conveyors, called elevators in the agricultural world, which allowed ice to move up from the lakes into the ice houses, around the ice houses, and back out of the ice houses onto trains and ships. In 1855, New York City went through about 75,000 tons of ice. That sounds like a lot until you realize that in 1880, they actually went through about 2.5 million tons of ice. It came out of 130 ice houses and employed about 20,000 people. This was sort of the peak of the ice industry, kind of leveled off at this point, and that lasted until 1913, when somebody invented the first electric refrigerator. Now, the first refrigerators were not good, but they improved quickly, and by the 1930s, electric refrigerators were affordable, they were available, and they were becoming commonplace. And unfortunately, that means it was all over for the ice industry. But for 100 years, more than 100 years, the natural ice industry provided fresh food, safe food to the country, to the world. And that's why this is the Industrial Revolution. Hey, wait just a second before you go. I need your help to keep the channel growing here. First thing you can do is really easy. Just like, subscribe, share this video. Tell all your friends about it. That spreads the word. YouTube will see that and we'll show this to more people. Commenting more than just 2 or 3 words. YouTube says that's the most important thing you can get. It's the best kind of user interaction there is. So you can comment more than just 2 or 3 words. Also, if you're able to and are interested in helping out financially, these are pretty expensive videos to film, a lot of travel costs on top of the hours of work I do here. You can help out at patreon.com/industrialrevolution or become a member here on YouTube or a single contribution through Super Thanks. Also have an affiliate store. If you click that, anything you buy there, a percentage of that purchase will come to help fund the channel. Thanks for your help and look forward to seeing you next week.